writing became my therapy. And I started to write about that. And I found that I really couldn't do it as myself, but I found fiction and I could write it into fiction. And that was my first book, Lori. And it became history and fiction together. And then I kind of went on with a lot of essays and short stories, and friends liked them so much that I put them together into a book. And then I went on to do a couple seminars on mystery, and I tried my hand at a mystery, but I'm really best at family sagas. I have two of them, Lori, and my most new one, Farewell to South Shore. And
yes, let's talk about that one too. So talk to us about kind of how that came to be and, what it's about.
Well, Farewell to South Shore, I first started writing about my growing up in a family building. South Shore is a place in Chicago, but South Shore could be anywhere. It could be any ethnic building. It could be like my Greek wedding, or it could be like In the Heights, the play now. It could be any ethnic building, but I wrote it kind of from history, and then I fictionized it and had fun with it. And I had my main character, Sherry. She was the first one to branch out of South Shore and out of her ethnic neighborhood where everything was ruled by the father, Papa. It was ruled with love, a lot of food, and it was a different time. And Farewell to South Shore is kind of a metaphor for leaving that time. I know you're a little bit younger, but I know your family might have grown up in buildings like that.
That's right.
And it's a metaphor for leaving the time. And my main character did leave South Shore, and she went on to be the first one to go to college. She became a lawyer, and she becomes very involved in women's rights and a lot of things that are current now. I mean, she dealt with them in the 70s, such as helping Roe versus Wade, and a lot of women's rights that are going on now. So it is current, even though it takes place more in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Interesting. Does it get any easier writing from your first book now? This is your 7th book. I mean, does it get easier?
I'm not quite sure. I'm 81 now. I think it gets harder to keep up with it and get it right. I do love fiction, though you have to, look up, you have to be accurate, but you can also, add on. If you don't remember things, you can make them up in fiction.
Right.
And you can change your characters. So it's in the last 2 years, I wrote Farewell to South Shore, and I just finished, it's a series. I finished the second book, which is called We Won't Go Back, and should be out next year.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so the plan is the plan to continue to keep writing too?
I I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Writing. I just finished like these two in the last 2 years. So I'm taking a little bit of a break.
Wow, wonderful. And again, we have with us Charlene Wexler, author of Farewell to South Shore, Elephants in the Room, Lori, Milk and Oranges, Murder Across the Ocean, and Murder on Skid Row. Talk to us too a little bit more about kind of the various theme of the book, though, like of the books that you've had and stuff. You mentioned about family and stuff. So tell go more deep dive into that of how that comes to be.
In all the books, or in Farewell to South Shore?
Farewell to South Shore.
Okay, I write about strong women, and I write a lot about the women's movement, and I get into a lot of current things, both in Farewell to South Shore and We Won't Go Back. I deal with AIDS, I deal with abortion. I deal with divorce, especially in the 70s when women first got divorced and had a hard time really working and taking care of their kids. There were no places for them. So I'm very much dealing into a lot of the social issues, but I also have been accused of being a little bit like the old Irma Bombeck. And a lot of my writing is laughter and tears.
Wow.
So my first book, Lori, as I told you, dealt a lot with losing a child.
Right.
But all my books are family oriented, and they deal with family from 50s on to now.
Right. And do you feel that, for example, with Lori, that it helps with the pain that took place in a way? Is it a therapy for you when you're doing that type of
therapy for me? Yes,
yeah.
Very much so. But I expanded on it, and it's actually my main character starts in Chicago, and she ends up living in Arizona.
Ah.
Kind of the opposite. I have a son that lives in Arizona, and I'm in Chicago. So I reversed it. She leaves, and he stays.
Right. Yeah.
But
absolutely. So, I mean, it's a way to deal with things then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And Farewell to South Shore, it's on a lot of Facebook, and it's on Twitter, and it's on a lot of other places. And what's happened is it is a place in Chicago. Like I said, it's also a metaphor. But I have people coming out of the woodworks that I went to high school with or that I knew before. And even you, I know you lived in Chicago, so you would enjoy a lot of memories about places in Chicago. Not necessarily South Shore, but I think you knew about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm getting a lot of people that are having a really good time with not only the characters in the book, but the places.
What about how would you give advice to others that have been thinking about a book? And most people think about a book but never write, or they may start with one page and go, oh, what do they call it, writer's block? I mean, it becomes, they know what they want to say, but they can't start. And when they do start, it's that way. But you've again 7 books and counting. How do you get past the writer's block? Is there a good time to do it? Like, what are some of the secret tips?
Well, retirement helped, so I had more time to do it. Also, I started like late 60s. I always wrote for myself. And I'd really like to tell everybody it's never too late to start on something you're dreaming about doing. And also, I went to several seminars, but I'm kind of too old for the seminars. And I got accused in the murder mysteries of not following the pattern. I guess murder mysteries has a pattern. And I felt like that was really encouragement. I could do it my way instead. But really just to keep going and try, give it a hand, just sit down and start writing. And if you get blocked, take a rest and come back to it. But think about experiences you've had in life and start with that.
Do you think that everybody has a book within them that they could write, that everybody can have the opportunity to be able to write about something?
Yes and no. A lot of people, like my husband, could never write a novel, but he could write a nonfiction book and tell you how to do something in dentistry or how to fix a plumbing thing. So really you have to be, there's 2 different ways of writing, and one is fiction and one is nonfiction. And nonfiction, you have to be willing to do a lot of research. In fiction, you still have to do research, but you can make up a lot. And
do a shout out of the various places too, besides CharleneWexler.com. Where can people find your book?
Okay, it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's on Walmart, Target, it's in London, Foyleys, it's in Japan. It's really, you can find them almost anywhere online for sure.
You know, with all the books that you've written and more coming and stuff, you could probably write a book about writing a book.
Oh, I don't know about that.
You know?
I'm the kind of writer that does, there's two kinds of writers. There's the one that outlines everything and is very precise. And I'm the one that knows my beginning and knows my end and lets my characters help tell me where to go.
Right.
You know, it's what I do a lot of.
And out of all the books and stuff of that you have, is there any particular one that you reads first besides the new one that's coming out? Like, is there, you know, like if there's one that you should read, you need to read this one first? Is there like an order of the books?
All right, there's a new one coming out. Then the next one would be We Won't Go Back. That's a series. Another series is Lori, and Murder Across the Ocean takes Lori. The book starts out with Lori as a 24-year-old. Murder Across the Ocean takes her as a 70-year-old and dealing with a granddaughter, and it takes her to London where the murder takes place. And it's very current on a lot of things too. It deals with the Holocaust. It deals with, probably one of my favorites about it is I had fun dealing with a romance in it between 70-year-old Lori and Scotland Yard's Sherlock Holmes, and between her granddaughter, who's in her 20s, and an FBI agent from Chicago.
Wow.
And I also had fun working with the difference between the English and the American in speech and ideas and how they deal with things. So that I had to do some research on.
Absolutely.
Make sure I got it accurate.
Absolutely. And talk to us about what are the various writing styles, and then how has your writing style transformed from all the various books you've written?
I think I kind of told you a little bit about writing styles, the people that do their outline ahead of time and the ones that just get an idea and dig in.
But are there only two, or are there different ways that people can do
Oh,
it?
everybody's an individual.
Yeah.
So they have their different ways. And I'm kind of one that just sits down and likes to write. And I haven't taken courses in it other than at one time I was a teacher for grade school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's great.
The dental office business.
Right.
Right.
So is one of the things of the challenge, I mean, there's so much noise going on in the world and everybody's got this and that going on and whatever, and worries and all that. Like, is there a specific place when you're writing these books that you're at? And how do you keep out all the noise that tries to get in to be able to focus on the book, you know? And then there's a third part of that is how much does one write? Like how much would you suggest someone, and how much do you write at one time?
You have to, how much do I write at one time?
In other words, yeah, when you're sitting down and writing.
Yeah, I'll get up in the middle of the night, write it down. If I get a thought, and sometimes I write, like Farewell to South Shore, I wrote the first part of it about 5 years ago when I wrote about the family building. And then about 2 years ago, I got an idea of what I can do with it and how I could take it from the past and put it into the future. So it doesn't always go in a straight line. I have a lot of, in Elephants in the Room, I have a lot of short stories and essays that I then later took and developed it more into the novel. So I'm new to the writing business, so I'm into the current writing. I have a publisher now, so I'm doing a lot more marketing than I ever did before, which is much more difficult than writing,
Sure.
especially for writers, because they like to hide in the closet or hide somewhere and sit down and be typing all day.
And at what point would you recommend someone get a publisher?
Publishers are not that easy to get. You usually have to get an agent first.
Mm.
But I would look for a publisher after I've written a couple good books. Publishers like series too. So you have to sell your book to the publisher. It's really what it is. So after I've written a couple, at least one good novel. Otherwise, when I first started reading, I just went on Amazon, which so many people do now. Self-publishing you can do on Amazon.
Right.
But with a publisher, you get a lot more input as far as marketing, and a lot more help in marketing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is getting the word out there. And you're right, on Amazon, there's, I mean, how many millions and millions and millions of books?
Right.
How do you get it where people will find you in that? And especially considering that virtually bookstores are, there's little to none left.
Right.
So it takes a lot. Yeah. Well, this has just been absolutely amazing. Again, Charlene Wexler, author of Farewell to South Shore, Elephants in the Room, and so much more. And we're going to go through that again too. But welcome again. Elephants in the Room, Lori, Milk, and Oranges, Murder Across the Ocean, Murder on Skid Row, more to come out. Make sure that you go to CharleneWexler.com. Once again, that's CharleneWexler.com. This has been David Cogan with the Eliances Heroes Show. Thank you so much again, Charlene, for being on the air with us today.
Okay. Thank you, Ed.
But you got to dance a little bit too. You got to dance a little bit.
Got to dance a little.